The VRRRP was conceived as part of our National Center's mission to serve as a research center and repository of information on civil rights and African American culture. In keeping with this mission, we have envisioned ways to connect the lessons from our past to solve the current challenges of today.
We're here today to say thank you, Lord, for your tender mercies and your loving kindness toward us. We gather here today as a think tank to discuss the issues around voting rights, redistricting, and the real possibility of creating an opportunity district in the state of Alabama.
Just recently, however, there have been a number of cases that have eroded the effectiveness and the reach of the Voting Rights Act. And so with the most recent case, the Allen versus Milligan case, the real purpose and reach of the act was threatened significantly. And so that case turned out in a way that I think a lot of people did not expect, but it breathed new life into the Voting Rights Act.
We need to have a deep and hopefully frank conversation about how we move forward. This is an important moment. You all probably just heard the district court, whom we've been waiting on to give us an answer, has chosen a plan. I'll talk about the aspects of that plan in a bit. But this is, in many ways, another chapter. It won't be the end of the story, but it is an important chapter in what happens next. And I hope it sets us up for a useful and thoughtful conversation.
We've dealt with so many different schemes and plans and different things from the Republican caucus in terms of how they attempt to dilute and disenfranchise minority participation in elections. Whereas this was actually the second lawsuit that's gone all the way to the Supreme Court that we've won that have revealed and ultimately remedied several things that the Republicans have done, including packing black folks into districts or cracking black populations to dilute our influence on elections. So the fact that we are here with basically Alabama being serial racial gerrymanders, and again, once again, the court slapping their hands, telling them that your conduct is illegal. It's just amazing that we're doing it again in 2023.
There are no disadvantages for having the opportunity to have a diverse delegation that reflects the population of the state of Alabama. There's no disadvantage there. The advantage is quite the opposite. You have the opportunity to have people who look like the diaspora of the state of Alabama represented in the United States Congress. And that's just the fair and right thing to do.
The first time we were able to see the maps that were going to be presented to the state legislature was when Representative England shared them via Twitter. That was the only way that the media, even members of his committee, and certainly Alabamians that don't serve in the legislature were made aware of what the congressional map was even going to look like. And that was 2 days or the day before the special session started. So that gives us an indication of how committed some of the state officers were in communicating this information to the taxpayers.
Let me tell you something. No disrespect to any politician at the federal level, but there's no politician at the federal level that's going to turn out my district better than I can. And so oftentimes we have this perception that somebody has to come in and save us instead of dropping the resources in the area for us doing what they call relational organizing.
So to do real effective relational organizing, we've been trying to help our organizational members to understand we have caste divides in our community. You know, some talk the hood versus the boule, and I grew up adjacent to both of them, so I know how to communicate with both of them. But that is a thing in our communities, and there are people that are responsive to leaders in one part of our communities who don't respond to leaders in other parts.
The narrative is we would love to think that there's been progress. Has there really been progress?
For black folk, it hadn't changed. Because even when Democrats was in power, we still had to have these same lawsuits just to be able to get districts that we want. No, even white Democrats didn't just voluntarily give us the lines we want. They fought us, and they even fought us in court. That's why back in the 80s and the 90s, coming all the way through real portion, we've always had to file lawsuits to be able to get black districts in the state of Alabama. No one just came up and said, hey, we all in the same party, we'll give you what you want because we feel like you should have representation. No, that's never happened.
We all represent people, but we can't even sit at the table to bring in our people in that map or anything. Do we chair any committees in the State House?
No.
We don't even chair committees.
Don't forget now, when the process first started, Democrats wouldn't letting us have our opportunity. I mean, let's don't forget, take your mind back in history. And if you said, well, if Democrats were, well, let's talk about Dixiecrats. You know, you take your pick. You see what I'm saying? So the process just stayed the same as Senator Singer said. For us, it just, whoever's in majority, we have to battle those things.
People, when they go and vote in the general election. So a lot of people, they understand that voting for the president is something that you need to do, or voting for the governor is something that you need to do. But your public service commission is just as important. And you need to go out there and vote for them because these are the folks that are controlling your life, man. These are the folks that are controlling how much land is, or they're controlling. These are the folks that are controlling those specific avenues that affect you on the daily. And when we look at Alabama itself, especially the Black Belt, so these are the poorest counties that are within our state. I'm a product of Sumter County, and Sumter County is 63rd out of 67 counties when it comes to median income, with an income that's being roughly $22,000. That's not a lot of money, and I think we all can understand that aspect. So when we are focused on that targeting and that mobilization, it is creating that culture of this is why this is important, digging into those specific avenues, because that is what galvanizes people. Let them know how that affects them on the daily.
Of course, the NAACP has been involved in voting issues almost since its inception. And our goal, our objective, we're a nonpartisan organization, but our goal and objective is to make sure that every vote is counted and that your voice is heard through your vote. And when it comes to this issue of redistricting, we are one of the organization plaintiffs in this case, and let me say that we are certainly proud and happy to be a part of this. And the NAACP sees its role as to educate people about their responsibilities when we have this new district, which of course everybody knows is going to be map 3. And our role is to make sure that people are educated about this new district, and also to make sure that they are educated about voting, because if it does not do any good to work hard to earn this new district and we don't get people to the polls. And as our previous panelist said, this is really where the work begins in earnest, because we have to mobilize people, we have to educate people, and then we have to get them to the poll on election day.
The wisdom of the past is so important, because you can't address the political realities now without understanding those things that shape them. In the early 90s, the shift with Republican and Democrat, and we all can ask the question over what that was, but I was lobbying in the legislature at the time. What changed the tide in Alabama, in my opinion, was not the election of Barack Obama. It was the creation of the pack-to-pack transfer deals that restricted a lot of money flowing into the state, which made voter registration, voter mobilization more corporate. It became an outside job, not an inside job. So now you have people from the outside of the state coming into the state, trying to mobilize people that they don't know, trying to tell people what their issues are rather than letting people tell their issues themselves. And it became somewhat of a generic thing. And in my opinion, that's what people kind of backed off from.
So we have to take the time to talk to these communities, these collaborative communities, and connect the dots. But that's work. It's not just saying your forefathers died for you, therefore you ought to, run to the polls. Young people are asking, what have you done for me lately? Black elected officials. So we have to do the work to connect the dots. Well, while you're out here trying to go catch the bag, and for clout and clicks and all of these things that our young people are running after, it doesn't matter what career field you go into, somebody in government is making a decision that is going to impact your paycheck. Somebody in government is making a decision that impacts the community that you live in, the education that you have the opportunity to have or not have, your environment to be able to afford. Somebody in government is making those decisions. So why is it important? You need to make sure that these people that you elect share your value system. But all of that takes work. So I'm hoping that the people in this room and the people that are listening by stream are willing to do the work so we will not be the laughingstock of this country, because we will be if we have this opportunity and Black voters still do not get an opportunity to choose the candidate of choice. We got to do the work.
We're kind of doing more of the contemporary aspect. We're moving away from that narrative of when we're speaking to voters, especially if they're apathetic about voting, is that we can't come back being defensive by saying, well, people died for your right to vote. You got to vote. This is your duty. And we have to understand, like for me, I was born in Montgomery, but my people are from Lowndes County. So I grew up hearing those stories of the civil rights movement, some stories that will not be in the books, some stories that I can probably laugh about, and thank God they didn't have camera phones back then. But I grew up in it, so I'm a student of the political process and going to get out to vote. Not everybody is brought out that way. So when you're having those conversations, we can't be on the dismissal like you have to vote. And we can't get into the alignment of political ideology and saying you got to vote blue no matter who, because if you were paying attention to the panel before us, not everybody that's identifiable with a particular political party is for the best interests of Black people and Black voters. So we just have to move away from that, but just really having those conversations. Why are you not voting? What are you seeing in your environment that's not changing? And once we start having those conversations and realizing the particular issues that they're facing, like Sam just brought up, the light bill. If you've been at your home in Alabama during the summer, once you get that Alabama Power bill, that bill looks like a mortgage. That is dictated by our Public Service Commission. So once we start relating that, well, you can do something about your utility bill by this particular seat, then people have a light bulb about it. Then you have those conversations of those people who saying, well, I keep voting, I'm voting for these people, they're not doing anything for me, I'm just tired, I don't want to do anything with that. But it's also having a conversation of understanding that your right to vote is to also not only vote people in, but you can also vote to get them out.